La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.
You know what day it is? Inner Wealth Podcast. Meditate and give. So manifest the greater this. And things all good cause I say it is. Invest in your inner wealth. Real generational wealth is mental health. It's an inside game, no toxicity. Let's talk and more listening. Ladies and gentlemen, and now introducing David McCullar, founder of Inception, the first mental health gym.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Inner Wealth Podcast. Happy New Year. This is actually my first episode back in the studio. Every other episode was pretty much pre-recorded. So I'm back in the studio and I'm solo today, which is pretty cool. I want to actually go over some things that I did recently, talk about some things that, ending in 2021, going into the new year. We're finally, well, I won't say finally, we're still going through this whole pandemic. And I noticed for myself that I had actually been feeling more depressed. And, I was talking to my dad about it. And, because I was asking him about how how it is being at home. And he's like, man, I'm tired. I'm tired of being at home. And that made me think, like, is this not just me going through this? Is everybody going through this? I know a lot of people are still kind of going out and trying to live their lives the same way, but on a day-to-day basis, you're still hearing things about the pandemics, things about being vaccinated or unvaccinated, and that's ongoing thing. I'm burnt out from all of this. I'm really burnt out, and so feeling burnt out, I said, you know what I can do about this burnout feeling is that I can do my own boot camp at my own mental health gym. That's one benefit of owning a mental health gym. So I actually today just came from doing my fourth day of our circuit program. I started on Tuesday, and let me just start off saying how I was feeling beforehand, and I want to kind of pull up some of my notes because I wrote things down just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But so being at home, definitely felt very depressed. Very depressed. I don't know how you quantify that, but I felt depressed. Felt non really motivated. Didn't really want to do too much. And I recently actually got, I thought I had COVID a couple weeks back, and then I took a test, come to find out I didn't have COVID, but what I did have was food poisoning. And then that's another interesting thing about the whole pandemic as well. Anytime somebody feels sick, we instantly think that they have COVID. First thing is, you gotta get tested. I sniffled, and my dad was like, "Man, you gotta go get tested." I'm like, I ain't get tested because I got the sniffles. Yo, I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out from hearing and all this testing for everything, every symptom that comes up in our bodies that, you gotta go get tested for COVID. A cough. There's so much stuff that we really are impacted from that has zero to do with COVID. But in our mind, everything is COVID related. So when you think about it like that, think about the level of stress that goes on behind the scenes of your body. Just when you hear and consistently see stuff about COVID. So that feeling I had about the depression and the lack of motivation, I wonder how many of us are feeling the same way. So again, I went in. I decided I'm gonna go do 4 days. I'm gonna do a 4-day boot camp at inception. And the cool thing about it is I do all of my services a lot, over the last 15 years. But um, during the pandemic, I hadn't been going as much. But I do my things at home. There's quite a few things I do at home. But let me just say, just off rip, um, the things I do at home they don't come close to what I do at inception. Like I don't have, I got, 25, 30, $50,000 pieces of equipment at inception. And you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference in using those tools versus using at home tools. So anyway, my first day doing my circuit, you know, so the circuit consists of 3 different technologies. We do brain training, which is a neurofeedback technology. We do Magnosphere first. We do Magnosphere, which is a magnetic therapy. Then we do brain training. Then we do flotation therapy. So I'm gonna take you through all 3 of these, but I'm gonna kind of break down this on a day-to-day basis. I noticed my first day that I did the circuit, I left and definitely I felt the contrast. I felt much better. I felt much better than I went in. Um, and it was subtle though. It was a subtle shift in it. And but I knew I was going back the next day. That was the cool thing about it. So that takes me to this part where people will come into Inception and they'll do one circuit. And depending on where you are currently within your brain and your body in terms of stress, being stuck in a trauma response, being stuck in a stress response, being deficient of specific minerals. Um, when you depending on how you are when you come in, that level of deficit that you're in is going to depend on the type of shift that you could possibly experience. Meaning, if you've been in an environment that's had a lot of stress, that's had, ongoing trauma, chronic stress, um, and you've had that for years, typically you're gonna be able to experience a bigger shift because you're starting at a very low point. That's like if you go to the gym, the traditional gym, and you work out. Let's say you haven't worked out in a long time, and you start working out, and then the next day you're really sore. You're like, man, like you really had contrast from that standpoint of knowing that you are really out of shape. You didn't have that before because you didn't work out. So now in working out, you see how much of a deficit you were in. So when people come in and do our circuits, they typically, a lot of times, specifically our people, black people, we're coming in, we're doing a circuit, and it's like, whoa, like it's a huge shift for people because we are really out of emotional shape. We're out of mental emotional shape, and we don't have the contrast to know that we're out of shape. So typically, when people come in, they experience that shift, and it doesn't always happen like that for people. It doesn't always happen like that for people, for one, because the brain and the body, like us at inception, our technologies aren't forcing anything upon you. It's not making your brain and body do things that your brain and body doesn't want to do. It's not pharmaceutical drugs. This is not a pill. This is not a take this and first of all, pills only mask the symptoms in the first place. They only mask, they don't heal anything. Pills don't heal anything. They suppress symptoms. So at inception, everything is supportive for your body. All right. And so when your body gets into an environment that's supporting rest and relaxation, the body can naturally move itself towards rest and relaxation. So if you've been in an environment, again, going back to those environments that's very stressful, oftentimes it's really hard to come into an environment that's very peaceful. And your body is not just going to let go just cause you did a circuit once. And that's the part about that I want people to understand about Inception, and is that it's not a one and done. It's great if you felt better after one circuit, but I guarantee you that if you did the boot camp and you did 4 or 5 days straight, your experience would drastically be different because you're actually putting in reps. So that's what I did. I came in, I did my own boot camp. I put in 4 days of circuits. And when I first did the Magnosphere, the first thing I noticed, I was kind of antsy. I was like, it was because I went in the morning too. So when you wake up and then you go to do something more relaxing, you would think, well, I'm wide awake. I can't fall asleep. But in the Magnosphere chair, I was feeling antsy, but towards the end, I was able to relax towards it. But um, that was a very, I won't say hard for me to relax, but it was harder than normal because I've been away from some time in terms of doing our circuits. So I did that, the Magnosphere, felt the shift, which was great. Felt my nervous system kind of shift, dial down. Now I'll go on to the second service, which is the brain training. This is one of my favorite things to do. And typically when I brain train, I'm passed out in like 5 minutes. I don't even really know because there's music in the background. And again, I'll go over each circuit and break it down too. But there's music you're listening to, and normally I don't even remember the song. I know about the first 5 minutes, and then that's it. But this time I was awake, and I was kind of antsy again uh, the whole time. But that's that contrast for me to know that I've been away for too long because normally I'm falling asleep in 5 minutes. But so I was relaxed afterwards. But again, I stayed awake. Next thing I did, of course, after that circuit, after that brain training session, I went and did flotation therapy. Now I haven't floated in a while, um, and so I thought I would be antsy again, just like I was for the Magnosphere and brain training. Um, but so I got in a tank and laid back, started floating, and instantly got up because I had some type of cut on my back. And if you don't know about flotation therapy, it's 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So throwing salt on any type of little cut, I mean it burns like hell. So I had experienced that for a moment, but I just basically was like, you know what, I'll just suffer through it. Wasn't a big cut or anything like that. Wasn't an open wound. So um, but sitting there in that float tank, I can feel the craving for silence and disconnection coming back. And while I was in there, it's like one thing my body recognized being in that water and being able to relax back into, again, just peacefulness and serenity and solitude. And that's what I had been missing. We live in an environment where the amount of stimulation that we're receiving on a day-to-day basis it's increasing. And so our nervous system, and I heard this from Dr. Feinstein, who's Dr. Feinstein is down at Lieber Institute in Tulsa, and he's been studying flotation therapy. And one thing he said, which makes sense, was that the modern day nervous system is craving disconnection. Yeah, because the nervous system is the electrical, I want to call it the grid for the body. And so it's involved in everything. And so when you constantly taking on stimulus, the body has to process all of that. It's just, when does it get to rest? People sleep with the TV on. your body's still not resting because you got a stimulus in the background that your body has to actually process. So um, after my session, I can definitely feel that again, that disconnection and my nervous system dialing back. And when I stepped out, I came out to a bunch of missed calls and text messages. I mean, when was the last time you just put your phone down, not even look at it? That's one thing that flotation therapy and or our circuit in general, like when you do the circuits, your phone is not on you. So you're not looking at it. You're getting a break from that stimulus alone. But I came out and it was missed calls and things of that nature. And that was my first day. It was just again, it wasn't rocky yet, but it was, again, I wasn't as relaxed as I normally would be, which is great because it gave me the ability to have some more contrast that I hadn't experienced in a long time because been doing these services for 15 years. So when you have clients coming in and clients are coming in from all over the country and the world right now, and when they come in, I always get sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I could experience what they're experiencing right now for the first time. Because I've lost contrast over the years, but this gave me the ability to kind of be right back in there to know what everybody else is experiencing as they come through Inception. Um, so that night I slept a little better than I normally do. I typically sleep pretty good, but I can tell my sleep was a little bit deeper. So second day, come back. We're gonna do this whole thing over again. Do the magnosphere. I felt agitated in the magnosphere this time. I was like, what is that about? Um, and I still relaxed, but I can feel that agitation. Now when I went and did the brain training, this second day of doing brain training, I fell asleep. And that's how I knew. Yep. Nervous system back to being able to just relax at, 5 minutes into brain training. I was gone. Um, Floating, man, went deeper into the float. Just feeling I can remember walking down the hallway of after my float and just feeling the tension like that I normally carry, not there. And you can go get massages, and I love massages, and I typically get them frequently, but massages to me it's a different tool for different task. Yes, your body feels relaxed, but when you come out of floating, it felt like you just left like a bag of bricks. Like I just floated before I came in here too, so I feel very relaxed and very slowed down. And so you have to excuse me, I got somewhat of a post float brain, so my thoughts aren't as logically ordered as normal because my brain is kind of in that real right brain creative thinking, and that's what happens typically when you come out of the float tank. um and we're stacking them. We're stacking their services. So I just got over the last 4 days, I just got hit with a bag of just chill out relaxation. And yesterday, after I did my sessions, I remember going home and actually starting to do work. It's not like I haven't been working, um, but I can feel myself doing work, and I can feel that work being much more, it's more easy to do it versus this whole idea about willpower. Like, I don't want to have to use willpower necessarily to do day-to-day tasks. Like, willpower is really used when you really have to push through something. Some of y'all, some of our culture, a lot of us really, we're all running on willpower. And because you're running on willpower, it's like willpower is your last ditch type of energy, you know? That's it. You don't want to run on willpower. You want to run on brain power and your ability to really have control over your desire to kick into gear, to, you know, go faster in life. to get things done, get things accomplished. But then you want to be able to dial back and go into relaxation too. You don't want to just always be stuck in that type of energy. That's how you burn out. So I mentioned about the pandemic is because this is the first time we've been in anything like this in my whole life. Um, I've never seen experience anything like this. And even my mom, she second, she was basically saying the same thing. She second that notion, which is, yo, this is some apocalyptic type of stuff where, we're really uncertain about certain things. So when you're really uncertain about certain things in life anymore, your level of certainty has diminished. Think about how your body is bearing that burden and carrying that load. So going in and doing my own circuit was my own boot camp was pretty profound and letting me know. I told one of the workers, told Jose, he's one of our inner fitness trainers, and I happened to tell him, I said, man, I said, this shit work. After the 4 days, this works. He started laughing because sometimes, when you have the ability to do something all the time, you kind of take it for granted. Now, me, I can say for 15 years, I haven't taken my tools for granted. I've been pretty immersed in what I do because it's very helpful. If you're in business, if you're doing business, it's not even if you're not doing business, even if you work a job, 9 to 5 job. If you work a job, is even, I can't say it's more stressful. Everybody's stuff is a little bit different, but everything is stressful in terms of going out and kind of doing the day-to-day, what we want to call grind. So the tools I've used over the years have helped me to really do my business at a higher level than I would if I didn't have them. I would have been burnt out. I probably would have stopped doing what I was doing years ago if I didn't have my tools. Because it gets to points where you're done and you can't do anymore. A lot of times people have heart attacks. I remember the one job I worked at, a guy had a heart attack on the floor. This is working for an educational system, online educational system, and people were stressed out. It's because people don't know how much of the burden that their body is carrying. So when you talk about things like cardiovascular disease, that's over 600,000 people die per year from heart attacks. That's inflammatory. That's stress related. We talking about strokes, same thing, stress related, inflammatory. All that could be mitigated. All that could be mitigated if you started to do the opposite of where you currently are. Because where you currently are in your health, if you look at that environment and look at the body's response to that environment, it's not conducive towards living a happy, fulfilling type of lifestyle, being so stressed out all the time. Look at the rates of depression, anxiety, and all these other different symptoms. Those are all stress and trauma related symptoms. So when you do the opposite, start to implement day-to-day tools and habits that's going to offset those things, then, your life will feel much better than what it is now. And when you think about on a day-to-day basis, there's one way you can really tell how you're doing mentally, emotionally, and that's sleep. Like how you sleep. So how long does it take you to fall asleep? Do you stay asleep? Do you wake rested? And if you can't answer yes to all of those questions, you got a sleeping issue. So even during, like, I sleep pretty well, but I went through the boot camp. Oh man, sleep got much deeper than it normally is. Why? Because the body is basically stuck in these patterns. So you got to do stuff to offset that, and that's what people have been coming to Inception to experience. And this is again what I experienced myself after doing my own boot camp, is that level of, okay, I gotta take back the energy that my body is using. My body is using energy for protection. So what happens when the body gets that energy back? Well, now the body can repair itself and use it towards other things versus fighting threat that really, for the most part, a lot of times is not even there. It's a lot of times the threats that we're experiencing are perceived threats. It's not even something that's in front of us. It's just something in your head that you're wrestling with, and sometimes there is actual physical, real life danger in front of you. Absolutely. But oftentimes our threats are scrolling down through Instagram, Facebook, and all these different feeds and seeing whatever we're looking at and um, finding danger in it. Your brain processing it as danger. Today again is my what? This is fourth day of doing the boot camp circuit. I'm not sure. I think I'll continue. I may do more services over the next few days. So that kind of answers that question too, in terms of people coming in from out of town and they're doing boot camps. And you can do as many days as you want. We had a young lady come up from the Bahamas back 2019. She stayed up here for 2 weeks, and she was doing services every day for 2 weeks. And that was very life changing for her. I didn't really suggest her do that much. That was a lot, but she felt like she really needed that. So I was like, okay. And while she was here, I mean, you coming from pretty much another country, coming from an island, you know, um, it's like, okay, well, it's not gonna hurt you to do that many. None of the services at Inception are gonna hurt you at all. But what happens is, as we go through this process, and we can go here because, and this is I want to touch on this for a moment, is after you do your circuit or your boot camp, we have resources for you to be able to read over. It's called What to Expect After. Because oftentimes people walk out the door and they just don't know what to expect. Like, I experienced these services, but now what? And so we have a whole document called What to Expect After that breaks down, you know, one thing that it breaks down is understanding that your body can go through these cycles where, let's say that you experience depression or anxiety. Let's say that's the main thing you even came in for. And let's say as you're going through the circuit program, you start to experience more anxiety and more depression. People say, "Oh, what? This don't work. This, I got more anxiety, or I can't sleep." Well, that's happening because we call those healing responses. And boy, I've gone through years of healing responses. Um, and now I'm gonna have to think, as I went through this boot camp that I experienced, and I had some emotional things come up that allowed me to place my awareness on some of those thought processes and emotions that were surfacing. And this is just a common thing. And I have the What to Expect document up here, and I'll read some of it. So emotions may come and go at various times. You may also feel happy, sad, depressed, angry, etc. Or your body may experience some painful sensations. If these are the case, do not be alarmed. Sometimes old emotions and injuries reappear for a short time and then release at a new and deeper level. Other times, the body sensations may be interesting, quiet, or subtle. Always surround yourself with positive stimulus and continue to be around people that love and support you. Friends and family that are good at listening without judgment are very wonderful. Counselors, therapists, or life coaches can also be helpful. You have to understand that as you go through this process or go through the process of healing in general, you have to start creating an environment that matches this new environment that you're trying to create. One thing we said, surround yourself with positive stimulus. Like if you come into Inception and you're doing the services, that's great, but you got to change up with the things that you're consuming. Reading books, and if you don't like reading books, it's cool. Like we got a thing called YouTube now. You can Google things now. You don't have to read it out of a physical book. You can get on the internet. You can watch videos on all the stuff that we're talking about. You got to start watching things that promote health, that promote positivity. Whatever it is that you're letting go of, you got to replace it with something better. Or you can decide to leave that space, leave that as an empty space. One of the end things we said, friends and family that are good at listening without judgment are wonderful. I know most people, they would say they don't have friends and family who can listen without judgment. And that's the reason why you go to a counselor, a therapist, or a life coach, because they're there. Their job is specifically there to be able to, they're not there judging you about what you're feeling. Oh, you know how oftentimes when you got your family, you could tell somebody you're depressed or sad. Why you sad? Why you depressed? It's like, I'm just sharing an emotion. I don't need you to go into why I'm depressed or is something wrong because I feel an emotion. And there's a lot of people in our community where you don't have the ability to be expressive. That's why it's important to get a therapist or someone of that nature, somebody who can sit there and listen. A really good friend can be very helpful too, you know. And you have to make sure though when you get a therapist that your therapist is not becoming your good friend. Your therapist needs to be your therapist, not your best friend. That's a boundary that you really don't want to cross with your therapist. Cause then all of a sudden, they can't fully uh, do the work that they need to do with you. You don't want to walk out of a therapy session and that therapist talked more than listened, or next they shared all the stuff going on in their life. Like what this ain't your session. You need a therapist who understand those boundaries. And you need a therapist or counselor or life coach because again, you need to be able to process. And so this is something that we highly encourage. Integration process can take 3 weeks to several months after sessions. This is not, this is not one and done. This is not, it's just like the traditional gym. You're going to get in, you're going to get out what you put in. If you come and you're doing services frequently, you're going to get way more out of it than somebody just came and just did one circuit. And our circuit pricing is like $99. Like our prices used to be way higher when we only did brain training. Our brain training packages were $1,700, and that was having to be paid all up front. Now you can pay $99 a circuit, or you can do a boot camp. You can do a 4-day boot camp for $396, or a 5-day boot camp for $495. You only just keep adding on to $99 per circuit. So that's very affordable for people to come in and do. And the more you load up and do those services and be on your process and learn how to go back and integrate and come back, do more. Again, there's no limit to the amount of services that can be done. The only difference is, I would say, is that you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it like all the time, every day. I got caught in that trap. So learn from me is that you need time to integrate. So if you do the boot camp, go away and, you know, live your life, process those emotions, make some changes in your external world. Again, create a positive environment for yourself that matches this new environment that you're trying to cultivate, and then come back and do more. Again, it's like layers of an onion that you're unraveling. Here's some more from this what to expect after you do these services. We recommend that you do not allow anyone to manipulate your neck and body. Forceful manipulation can be shocking to the system and can be a whole new trauma on its own. In case you experience a major or minor traumatic event like one of the following, please respond quickly and contact Inception for a circuit as soon as possible to help you get back on the track to well being. So, what that means is, again, Inception is going to be your tool that you can use that after you going through something traumatic. Like for years I've gone through traumatic things and I'm in Inception because I'm trying to balance myself out after that. When I had soldiers come back from war, they're in Inception. Like, because you got to understand your nervous system, stress response, trauma response, that's all protection, right? When you come back, it's not like your brain's like, oh, you know what, we're back home, we're safe now, that just calm down. Nah, your body still is stuck in survival mode. And that's something that we talk about just about on every episode. I mean, this is something I share over and over and over is that we're stuck in survival mode. We're using our resources for protection versus thriving. So here are some of the things that, you should be back in Inception if you've experienced these things. Car accident, whiplash, verbal or physical altercation, concussions, trips or falls, death of a loved one or someone close, illness, surgery, school or work related stress, or any physical, emotional, or psychological abuse, etc. So if you're experiencing these things, you got to come back in so that you can start to, again, rebalance your nervous system. Over time, your body's going to learn how to regulate itself. But it's not a bad thing to use tools to help your system along as well. And that's what I did. I told you at the beginning of the show, feeling depressed, feeling sluggish, feeling unmotivated. Again, we not seeing the sun, vitamin D deficient. I'm sure that's another thing that I did during the boot camp. I added vitamin D and magnesium. In experiencing all that, I said, "Oh, I'm going to go do my own boot camp." Why? Because we're constantly in a state of one of these things: school or work related stress, um, death of a loved one. We've been having people in our family that's been dying. We haven't been able to go to funerals. We've been, you got Zoom funerals. This is some crazy stuff that's happening in our day-to-day lives right now that we just don't even know how it's been affecting us. If you have that awareness that these things are happening in your life, there's a good chance that you don't have your mental emotional resources to do or physical resources to do what you would really want to do in life which is what? To excel. So you got to come in and start working on those that emotional obesity. Please pay attention to changes that seem small or of little consequence. We recommend journaling the changes you notice, no matter how small. Also, be very attentive to your body. Most times you feel great with lots of energy. Other times you may feel tired and need to sleep a lot. See, look, I didn't even realize this. I forgot to even mention this. I think the second day, I was exhausted. I was so tired. I went home, 2 days. I took naps both of those days, and I normally do nap, but I had noticed that I hadn't been really napping. In those 2 days, I took some naps. So why am I? You would think, oh, but you're gonna get energy. Like, why are you tired? Because your body has been holding itself in a specific pattern for so long that is finally moved to what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. That's when your body goes into rest and digest. That's when your body is going into chill out mode, right? And oftentimes we're at a higher level of what's called sympathetic. That's when you're going into, again, these even to get up, you're going to go into sympathetic. To get up at the beginning of the day, cortisol, adrenaline, all that's going to increase, right? These aren't bad things, what I'm talking about. That's to get you going for the day. But when you're kind of dialed up and sympathetic, like a lot of people are, or they're stuck in fight or flight, like you're burning through resources. So when you come to Inception, you do the services, your body shifts from sympathetic to parasympathetic, rest and digest. You're like, oh man, that's like I was saying earlier about putting those a bag of bricks down. You've been carrying it around. So now I went home and I just like I allowed my body to rest. Other times you may feel tired and need to sleep a lot. Your body gotta it's trying to repair itself, and it wants to go into deeper realms of sleep because it now has the ability to. It always had the ability, but now you're giving it permission to be able to do so. All right, so look at this. You should always take into account that you have lived for many years with your brain in balance until now. Therefore, your brain needs your active support to regenerate and form new positive patterns. You have spent a significant amount of your lifetime developing a certain mental, emotional, and physical patterns in your brain's neural networks and body tissues that were not beneficial. Now you must develop new positive patterns with your brain balance. Disease generally does not appear overnight. Thus, self-healing will also take time. The regeneration and self-healing process can last several months. Please do not expect miracles overnight. Inception is not a cure-all, fix-all overnight treatment. Therefore, once again, be patient and gentle with yourself. That right there is a lot. In this document, I've given to my clients for the last, I want to say we probably started giving it to people 2009. And I just really brought it back into play because, again, most times people not sure what to expect. And people have this idea that you came in and you heard about Inception and it's a mental health gym. So you came in once with poor mental health, right? And then you're going to walk out and everything is magically corrected. Wrong. Yes, you may come out and then there might have been a shift that takes place. You may feel better. That's great. That's great. But there's more work. That's just the beginning. And some people are coming along their journey. This is not the beginning part of their journey. This is continuation. It can be used for that too. It could be used for people who also, they may feel like, well, you know what? I'm not too stressed. It's very good for them too. They'll come in and they see, oh, I guess I was a little stressed. Like you got contrast again. You can't come in and expect your brain and body to be different after one session when you've experienced a lifetime of stress and trauma. Like the environment you still live in is still traumatic. Like again, everything we're talking about, where you are now has a direct correlation to the environment that you're in. This brain, this body we live in it's an adaptive machine. It only adapts to its environment. And it adapts to try to survive from the environment. If you're stuck in survival mode, you have to start, again, creating environments that's about peace. Coming into Inception, you do the services, you're starting to create rest and relaxation within the system. Peace is starting to come within the system. You got to create an outside environment that's going to match that. And like we said, therefore, once again, be patient and gentle with yourself. In my beginning journey, when I had experienced anxiety, a lot of it, and panic attacks, I mean, trust me, I want to move from that state as quick as possible. I get it. I didn't want those symptoms anymore. And then when I started experiencing anxiety, I thought, man, this stuff don't work. I felt better for a moment, then I felt anxious. This don't work. No, it does work. What's happening is bringing up and out what's in there. The anxiety, oh, you got to feel that. Oh, the depression, oh, you got to feel that. The anger, you got to feel that. The sadness, you got to feel that. You, you got to feel all these things that you're resisting to get to the other side. And that's why we come in and we do the work. This is a gym, like, it's some work that's involved. It's the work is relaxation and calming and things of that nature. The work comes in when you got to start processing everything and start changing your life. That's when the work starts to happen. It's easy to, and for some people, it ain't even easy to just sit down in a chair and do nothing. But that's what happens. All right, then we talk about maintenance, and I kind of addressed this earlier, but I'll just read through it. Every client is different, therefore will have different needs as far as the number of circuits required to attain results. Remember that patience is required, but also continue maintenance circuits over several months to help your brain and body continue to develop and release old patterns while creating and sustaining newly formed patterns. You may choose the number of circuits you feel is right for you. However, from our own experience, we have found that these guidelines generally work best for our clients, which is, again, you're gonna need more circuits. You're gonna need more boot camps. Literally, you can do 10 boot camps and still be just scratching the surface. Doesn't mean you won't feel better. Oh, for sure. For sure. People coming in feeling better. But again, we're talking about a journey, right? Go watch that show, The Biggest Loser, right? You ever seen that when they're measuring on a day-to-day basis? See, the thing is with the mental emotional side, oftentimes people don't have the ability to measure changes for themselves. That's why we do our enhancement evaluations, and you can take that evaluation numerous of times. It's a series of 10 questions. And those 10 questions ask you things about, well, how you slept at night, on a scale from 1 to 10. One being you didn't sleep at all, or you slept, actually, you didn't have any issues sleeping if it's 1. 10 is if I have issues sleeping all the time. So you can answer these questions, ongoing, and we're actually building software where that'll be automatically attached to every service and circuit that you do, so that you can start tracking your results. But the best thing you can do is begin to have the awareness, right? Take notes. We talked about it early, journaling. We said journaling for a reason, because when you journal, you can now remember, oh, yeah, this did happen. Like, I had to read this for myself in terms of, other times you may feel tired, you may need to sleep a lot. That sparked it into me, like, yeah, I was taking naps and I was exhausted now, and I had that in my notes too. But if I didn't read that, it wouldn't have sparked that even happened for me. So you can come to Inception, do the stuff, walk away, and be like, oh, nothing changed. Well, because you didn't place your awareness on anything. What are you, how are you quantifying it? And that's a good thing to do, is to begin to quantify your own results by saying, doing the enhancement evaluation and doing it multiple times so you can see the change in the numbers. One thing that's in the actual what to expect after we talk about boot camps. Again, this is what I've done for myself for the last 4 days, is my own boot camp, and many people are flying in to do these boot camps. Some clients may want to experience a greater emotional or physical impact because they are overworked, the stress of everyday life has become too much, or the want to work on past unresolved traumas. The boot camp is an intensive 4-day package that includes 3 inner reset circuits and an inner detox circuit. Now, that's one thing I didn't do during my 4 days. I didn't start off doing a detox. I just went right into my circuits, but we do recommend doing a detox first, because what happens is when the body is burdened with in our environments, we have things like molds, mildews, mercury in our body. Like, we want to help support the body to begin to detoxify that, because when those pathways can become open, the body has a better opportunity to go into that healing response as well. So we recommend doing a detox circuit first, and then you do the 3 inner reset circuits afterwards. And that makes up the 4 days. Each circuit features different workouts with the same end goal: relaxing your brain and your body, restoring healthy sleep patterns, and supporting the major systems of your body. Most clients that have completed a 4-day boot camp have reported deep feelings of relaxation, better quality of sleep, a shift into greater inner peace, and ability to cope. However, a few clients have reported the need to process through unresolved grief and trauma with a mental health practitioner. That goes back down to what we said again. We're just going to keep saying the same thing over and over again, which is energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed or transferred, right? So, whatever those emotions that we felt during our traumatic or stressful events, those are stuck in our bodies. And as you go through our boot camp program, a lot of that starts to surface. A lot of that emotion starts to surface. And depending on where you are, you may need to get some type of mental health practitioner to help you to process. And we do have recommendations and people that we can put you in contact to help that. So see, Inception is a mental health gym, but it works on the biggest impact, the thing that has the biggest impact on your mental health, your body. Your brain and your body impacts, I mean, the impact on your brain and body is very um drastic. Think about it. Mental health. We think about mental health, we think cognitively, but really it's within our bodies. That's basically the body bears the burden, as the book says, or the body keeps the score. It's the body that you really need to really help to process through the emotions, to regulate the nervous system, to create more healthier neural pathways and neural nets. So, but during that whole process, it can be times it's not pretty. Definitely you may need a mental health practitioner to help you along with that. That's what to expect after doing the boot camp. And this is what I experienced. And I've been doing this 15 years. Did I need to talk to someone? I actually did. I talked to friends about, my experience and what I was going through. I've been feeling sleepy, this been that, this is happening. So I've been documenting my experience and journaling. Again, we talked about, obviously, I came in after experiencing a lot of these things on the what to do to get back into Inception after you experience stuff like car accidents, whiplash, concussion, trips or falls. Well, we're experiencing death of loved ones on a day-to-day basis. I mean, every day you scroll down your feed and you can see somebody died, and um, again, or somebody experiencing something stressful or traumatic. And that's one thing that's important, is to fix your feed. I said that many times. Fix your news feed. Try to put things in your news feed that are light. I started following a lot of dog pages. Like I like to watch dogs. Like if you're an animal lover, I mean, nothing really spikes your sense of well-being like looking at dogs do stuff. So that's something I recommend, is change your feed to reflect more positive things. That doesn't mean that you live with your head in the sand either. I think oftentimes people think that you got to stay in this state of positivity and nothing negative can come in. No, you need to. There's some stuff in life that you have to address, and it's not going to always be peaches and cream. But on a day-to-day basis, once you experience those things, you have to use your intention and place your attention back on things that are about growth. Because if you place your attention on things that are all about survival, well, what do you think your brain and body are going to be stuck in? It's going to be stuck in survival mode and protection mode. And as Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about, you can't be in um, growth and protection at the same time. It's one or the other. So if you're always watching things that are dramatic, traumatic, then your brain and body are going to react to those things. So you got to counteract that. And I think that's really what's an issue with our society right now is that um, most of our entertainment is improper, is reversed. Like it's one thing, to watch the shows and with a lot of drama and all this stuff, but that's fine. But when the bad things in life get more attention than the good things, we're imbalanced. Again, your brain and your body is going to adapt to the environment that you're in, right? What is the environment that you're in? Whatever you see, hear, taste, smell, touch, that's the environment. So all of those attributes, if in your environment, all those attributes are uh can be seen as to the brain and body threatening in some type of way, or the body has to protect you, whether real or fake, like, well, the body is going to actually be stuck trying to protect you. And then you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have depression, you're going to have the inability to focus and concentrate because all your resources are used for protection. We have to create, again, environments that are conducive for growth. Look at people succeeding, look at people accomplishing goals that you didn't even think were possible. Look at things that are going to help you bust through old belief systems, you know, things that make you happy. I'm not talking about don't do the whole FOMO thing though, fear of missing out when you're just watching people go on trips and all that. You think, well, I wish that was me. No, what needs to be you is somebody who can feel better on the inside without a trip. That's how you know when you have a healthy state of being, when you can conjure up the feelings and emotions on the inside of you, because guess what? The feelings and emotions were only conjured up on the inside of you anyway, regardless of where you were. So if you were on a trip and you felt good, you can feel good at home. That's where our imagination comes in at. And you can start to use that purposely to change the way you feel. Yeah, the environment definitely is helpful. It's helpful to be on the beach and the sun is out and palm trees and all that. But what are you going to do if you can't go there? Do you just sit and be miserable because you can't go on that trip? No, you have to learn how to be able to shift your inner awareness towards emotions that you want to experience without the stimulus. You don't need the stimulus. You can become your own stimulus. Again, people flying in from out of town to come to Detroit to come to a mental health gym because they're starting to understand that it's the inner wealth. Those are the inner riches when you feel better. And to recap on my whole boot camp, I can definitely say that I feel a lot lighter, sleeping a lot better, ready to kind of get back into the swing of things going into the new year. I didn't feel like that literally a Monday. I didn't feel like that on Monday. Here it is Friday. And now I'm feeling more ready to get back into my day to day. I want to call it grinding because I don't grind. I want to get back into my flow, getting back into the flow. And that's where I feel, I am now from doing this boot camp is back into the flow, and it's gradually into the flow. I'm not all the way in there though. So we'll see how I feel next week when I like give myself time to process and integrate everything. But quickly want to go back to on because we're talking about Inception's boot camp, and I want to talk about these three services before I conclude. Um, the three services that I did again, we did the inner reset circuit. I did that for 4 days. In the boot camp, there is a detox circuit involved. Um, so the magnosphere is the first thing that you do within the circuit. And many people with the magnosphere, because it's a very low level magnetism, is millions of times lower than the magnetic field of the earth. So when you stand on the earth, you don't feel the magnetic frequencies. So when you're in the magnosphere, you're gonna not necessarily feel the magnetic frequencies unless you're someone who's sensitive to frequencies. And some people are very sensitive to frequencies, and they can come in, they'll be in a magnosphere, and they're like, man, I feel all of that. And then some people walk out like, I don't feel anything. And it's not about the feeling while you're in there. It's about what's happening underneath the surface that's shifting your body. It's using, again, the Earth's magnetic frequency is lower than the magnetic frequencies of the earth. It actually mimics the magnetic frequencies and profiles of the ligaments, tissues, cells of the body. You don't feel those magnetic frequencies, do you? But when you do magnosphere, and this was created by Dr. Uh, Jerry Jacobson, who passed away during the pandemic. A very, very smart guy who figured out the magnetic profiles of what I just said, our bodies. I mean, to even think about, where do you go to even think about that? Like, where do you start to even think about that? And this guy figured it out. And so we use the magnosphere as a primer. We use it first because it primes the nervous system. It gets the vagus nerve to be able to, again, down regulate. So when you come out of the magnosphere, it's shifting you, preparing you to go into the brain training session. And the brain training session is, this is one of my favorite things. The brain training is like a mirror. It's like a mirror for your brain to see itself and how it's operating in real time. And the reason why that's important is because the brain is not self-aware. That's why the brain stays stuck in these patterns of survival, even though a threat is not even in front of you anymore. So the brain is just going to say, you know, we're going to stay stuck and locked down in this pattern, even though, you know what, that thing is long gone, but we're going to make sure you're good for future reference. All right. So the neurofeedback program we're using, it's placing sensors on a scalp, and those sensors are read only. They don't shock you. It's not electroshock therapy. It's only capturing the information. It's read only. So it's only reading the brain information. And what it does is, in real time, it gives the brain information, because you have a pair of headphones on your head. You're listening to music. And within that music, you'll hear these skips, pauses, and interrupts within it. And you would think, oh, is that a CD skipping? That's not a CD skipping. What that is that's information for your brain, so that your brain can become self-aware and have contrast of what it's doing in real time. And when the brain can have that level of contrast and awareness, the brain can change itself. For instance, you ever been driving down the road, if you have, been in one of these newer cars where they're standard, they put on the cars as standard now is these little lights on the mirrors that start to light up when somebody comes into your blind spot. Now, when somebody comes into your blind spot, that mirror will light up. It's making you aware that, hey, it's somebody on the side of you. From that point, you decide whether you still gonna get over or not. The mirror and the signal doesn't stop you from getting into that lane or to the next lane. It just lets you know, hey, somebody in your blind spot, you may not want to do that. So it's the same thing with brain training. There's skips, pauses, and interrupts within the music, which is the brain saying, hey, you're going into these patterns of stress, trauma. You wanna go there? Oh no, I don't want to go there. The brain thinks about the brain and says, we don't need to do that. So then the brain can start to self-regulate. The brain stays driving straight on the road versus veering off. So when that happens, people feel very relaxed. When the brain can come out of the stress response, because the brain can observe itself. And so that's the second service within that circuit, and it's very powerful. My dad actually, he came up and he brain trained twice this week with me, and After the first day, I said, "How'd you sleep last night?" He said, "Man, my dad." He's like That's all I need. He said, "I just need the brain train. I'm right back at it." And it's great. It's great when your parents, because both my parents have been using these services with me for years, and they look really good. Um, they don't take any medication, so a lot of people, they're on medication. My parents aren't on any drugs, and their doctors are always fascinated by that they're not on any drugs. Well, yeah, you don't have to be on drugs when you can take care of yourself, when you understand what's happening. And so my dad said, "Oh, I'm gonna go in and do brain training with you." Cool. My mom said she did her own circuit the other day. Cool. Like, you want to preserve your loved one's life. Of course, they have to want to do it themselves. And one thing you have to understand, that doing these services, they have an anti-aging effect to it. Oh, ain't no studies behind that. Yeah, there are studies behind the relaxation response. What do y'all really think we're doing at inception? It's relaxation. It's just different technological forms of relaxation that are highly effective. It's not sitting on the couch drinking a beer relaxation. Like, this is really regulating your system. That's the real issue with society. We're dysregulated and we're not at peace internally. And a lot of us have a lot of reasons for not being at peace based on our environment. But if you're listening to this podcast and you have the ability, currently you have the ability to begin to change your environment, then do it. No, no, this is not for everybody. This is for those who can hear the message and have the ability to go and start taking care of themselves. Do it. Go to the gym, traditional gym. Get yourself in shape. But get yourself inward shape. You got to do the inward work. The inward work is going to get you externally in shape as well, because they match each other. But the interesting thing is, I've seen people who are really in shape externally, it looks like they're in really good shape, and miserable on the inside. So it don't always work in the opposite, in terms of, well, you look good, you feel good. No, that's not always the case. I've worked with a lot of bodybuilders. I work with female bodybuilders who suffer from depression. Like, so don't always work like that at all. Just because somebody got muscles or six pack, or, that doesn't mean anything. So starting from the inside out, to me, is where it's at. Now, anyway, I got off on a tangent because I'm talking about family, doing circuits. That's always great when you can bring your family in. Your family can be involved with taking care of their health. But the last service I want to talk about is the flotation therapy. I love flotation therapy. Again, stimulus reduction, zero gravity environment. It's a pool that's 9x5. Our tanks are, a lot of times people have these pods, and I started off with the float pod. We were the first people to bring flotation back to Metro Detroit in 2014. And I started off with a pod. I ended up getting rid of a pod because I had to pull a naked man out of a tank because he couldn't get out. I thought we were about to call the fire department. I was like, oh my God, man, I'm about to be on the news. Got to pull this old dude out of a tank. So anyway, I wasn't about to call the fire department. I figured some shit out. I pulled that guy out that tank. He probably was about 6'3", 200 something pounds. I am 6 foot, 170 pounds, soaking wet, pulling this big old naked guy out of the tank. But I tell you this, I pulled him out. We weren't about to call the fire department. He wrote a bad review for me though. It's like, bro, I just pulled you out of the tank and you got the nerve to go write a bad review for me? Okay. Anyway, from that point, I did tell him, I said, well, in the future, we'll have these built-in float tanks that you can step into. You ain't got to climb out of. You can just stand straight up and walk out of. And guess what? Years later, we have those tanks. So they're not pods. It's a glass door in the front. And many of our people, many black people, Y'all be opting out of floating. That is not the thing to opt out of at all. That is the thing that you want to be in, even if you can't relax. Well, that's why you're in there. You don't get in there because you can relax. You get in there because you can't relax and your body needs to be in an environment that's conducive towards relaxation. Very low stimulus. The water is heated to skin temperature. There's 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. There's no light. There's no sound. You have the ability to turn the light switch on. No music. We had music before, but I took the music out. That's defeating the purpose when you're in there listening to DMX in the float tank. No, you don't need more stimulus. You got enough of that. How many playlists you got? How much scrolling you doing? How many shows you watch? Like, okay, like you're overstimulated. You don't need to get into a sensory deprived environment and add stimulation to it. No, get in there. And I'm very emphatic about this. I'm like your coach, like your trainer. Like, no, get your ass in there. Get in there. Stop. You're going to be afraid. I was afraid my first time. I was afraid my second time. I had a mini panic attack in there my first time, but I went back because I knew if I kept at it, my body would normalize to it. And once it normalized to it, I was like, man, this is amazing. And it takes like 3 times. It takes 3 times to really be able to enjoy it. And you're not coming to the mental health gym for the spa sake. You're coming to do work. And there's going to be times when it's going to be uncomfortable. And so getting into the float tank, it's going to be uncomfortable. If you got to sit there your first time, sit there. At least you're going to get the magnesium. The number is 80% of Americans suffer from magnesium deficiency. I know that number kind of is off. Some people say, oh, it's 60. Some people it's 80. Some of these studies. But it's a good number of people are magnesium deficient. You will absorb the magnesium through the skin, transdermally. So get in there. If you got to just sit in there, just sit in there. But get to a place where you can float. I floated for 35 days straight. And I'll tell you this story. I'll leave you with this one story. I had 2014's a woman called me and she was like, oh my God. She's like, you have float tanks? I said, yeah, I have a float tank. I had one float tank at that time. And she was just so happy. And I was like, why is she so happy? She's like, and you a brother? I said, yeah. She's like, this is so amazing. She just like, I think every school needs a float tank. Her name was Hattie Mae Pembroke. Hattie Mae Pembroke became one of my like best supporters. She loved what we were doing. She loved my staff. She loved me. She loved everything that we were doing. And she was in her 70s and she came in, she floated, and I just told her, I gave her the opportunity at one point because we were doing a float challenge. We did again 35 days. She came in. I said, Hattie, you want to do the float challenge with us? She's like, I can't afford that. But I was just like, don't worry about that. So I let her go in and float. Hattie did something like 60 hours of floating over like 50 something days straight. She blew my record away. My one of my mentees, Antonio, he had broke my record, I think 35. I think I was 33. And then Hattie came in and smashed all of our records. Here she is, 74 years old and floating every day. She just loved floating. And she passed away recently. And that was pretty sad to see that during the pandemic. But I know Hattie was like full of life. So one thing I was encouraged about it, even though I saw that she had passed away, I was sad, but at the same time I felt grateful for knowing her because she was so full of life. Again, supported what we did to the max. Always energetic, always upbeat. She loved Les Brown. She was very heavily into the motivational world. She used to tell me, David, you gotta go see Les, and you gotta tell Les about Inception. And I went and saw Les too. And then I took a picture with him, told him about Inception, everything. Told him Hattie had sent me, and he perked right up when he heard Hattie's name. You know, so Hattie was a very inspiring person, and she definitely inspired me. So rest in peace to Hattie, and I want to leave you with Hattie's message on doing the inner work, doing things like floating, doing things like brain training, and taking care of yourself. So I'm gonna leave it with her. Until next time, guys.
Wow, floating has helped my life exponentially. Each float builds on the next float. If I could go more often, I'd be like that, which I am, but still, floating is a miracle. And what's sad to me is that most people on the planet know nothing about floating unless you're in a pool or a lake or something. But this is powerful. This is what we need in 2017 and every year thereafter. I'm thinking about Bill Gates when he said he wanted every house to have a home computer, and they thought he was ridiculous. I want to have a home float tank, and I think a lot of people could benefit from it. I know they could benefit. Suggest that they go at least 3 times, because the first time you're kind of nervous, don't know what to expect like that. And the second time you got a little bit more handle on. Third time is a charm. And I understand you got float rooms coming in, which is, I only floated in a float room one time, and that was here at your place. Oh my God, that just opted up my float. I did a 33-minute brain train. What's so interesting about that is like quantum mechanics, quantum physics. The brain is looking at itself. I was shocked when you told me that, David. The brain is looking at itself, and it makes the adjustments that it needs to make for more wholeness and health. I thought that was tremendous. And you can hear little clicks when the music stops, and the music is profound. Love the music, but then the little clicks, I know my brain is like hearing itself. It's beautiful. So I do 33 minutes of brain training and go into a float then. I think I found you on the internet. But what was shocking was to see a young black brother doing this type of work. This is all over the world. They have float spas in Spain and France and wherever the heck they are, all over the United States. But I've never met a young black brother entrepreneur like you who wants to bring this to more people. It's about healing. It's about loving. It's about being more of who we are. And God knows all the digital stuff we got going on today, the stress that we experience, most people have no clue what this is about, but you do. And I'm so glad I met you. God, I'm so glad I met you. Yes. You know what's the best advice for a beginner? Is to do nothing. We're so not used to doing nothing. We got to do this, fix that, do this, do that, all that crazy stuff. Do nothing. And so trying to relax, is not that easy, because we're stressed. We're in a stressful environment. Our lives are stressed and full of anxiety and stuff. But yeah, do nothing is what I would say to a first-timer, beginners. Do it at least 3 times. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share.
You've been listening to the Inner Wealth Podcast on EYL.
Get out the matrix and live.
Theme song produced by Be Ready for West Coast Creations. I am Razcast, reminding you to take action, be proactive, be congruent. Get out of the matrix, get your mind right. We've automated mental health at inception. Join the movement.
La la la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La la la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La la la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.